The farmhouse was quiet. It wasn't the peaceful, heavy silence of a house at rest, where the timbers settled comfortably into the earth, and the only sound was the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. This was a hollow, brittle silence. It was the silence of a held breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Amy Fleming stood in the doorway of her daughter's bedroom. She hadn't changed her clothes since the ambulance ride. Her jeans were stiff with dried mud from kneeling on the hardwood floor, and her jacket smelled faintly of the hospital, that cloying mix of antiseptic and stale coffee that seemed to cling to the skin like a film. She looked at the small lump under the duvet. Lindy was curled into a ball facing the wall, her breathing shallow and uneven. Amy gripped the doorframe, her knuckles turning white. She felt like an intruder in her own home. She had come back to be a mother, to offer comfort, to explain why great-grandpa wasn't in the kitchen making pancakes. But every word she rehearsed in her head sounded like a lie. For Lindy, the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with the echoes of the night before. She wasn't asleep. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the wallpaper pattern she had memorized years ago. She was replaying the movie that had started when the shouting began. It hadn't been the usual bickering. Lindy was used to Aunt Lou's frantic energy and her mom's stubborn quietness. She knew what an argument about a budget sounded like. She knew what an argument about a horse sounded like. But last night was different. The voices hadn't been annoyed. They had been jagged. They had vibrated through the floorboards of her room like a tremor before an earthquake. She had been drawing at her desk, her crayons hovering over a picture of a horse, when the shouting spiked, when she heard her mother scream. Something about leaving Lindy had dropped the crayon. It had rolled off the desk and disappeared under the bed. She hadn't gone to get it. She had sat there, frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. And then, the lights. That was the part she couldn't blink away. The red and white strobe lights had slashed across her ceiling, turning her familiar sanctuary into something alien and terrifying. The siren hadn't just been a sound, it had been a physical force, shaking the window panes, screaming that safety was gone. Lindy remembered opening her door. She remembered creeping to the top of the stairs, her bare feet cold on the wood. She remembered looking down into the foyer. The image was burned into her retinas. Great-Grandpa Jack, the man who was invincible. He was on the floor. He looked like a pile of old clothes, empty and discarded. His face was a color she had never seen on a human being before, gray, waxy, wrong. And Mom was on her knees beside him. She was crying. Not the soft crying she did when she watched sad movies. This was ugly crying. She was shaking him. She was screaming his name. "Grandpa! Grandpa! Please!" Lindy had gripped the banister, the wood biting into her palms. The world had tilted on its axis. In that moment, the hallway wasn't the hallway anymore. It was a memory she had tried to lock away. It was the day her dad didn't come home. Amy stepped into the room. The floorboard creaked under her boot, a sharp sound that made Lindy flinch under the covers.
"Lindy?"
Lindy didn't move. She pulled the duvet tighter around her shoulders, creating a cocoon. She didn't want to come out. Amy sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped under her weight. She reached out and placed a hand on Lindy's shoulder. The girl was trembling. It was a fine, high-frequency vibration, like a wire pulled too tight.
"I know you're awake, honey."
Lindy stayed silent.
"I wanted to tell you, the doctors are taking good care of him."
Amy stroked Lindy's hair, smoothing the tangles. She was trying to soothe her daughter, but her own hand was shaking. She was trying to project a stability she didn't possess.
"He had a dizzy spell. His heart got a little tired, but he's strong. You know, Grandpa. He's the toughest cowboy in Hudson."
Amy forced a small, wet chuckle, trying to lighten the air. It fell flat, dying in the space between them.
He's going to be okay, Lindy. I promise. He's going to come home soon.
Lindy turned over. Her face was pale, her eyes dark and hollow, rimmed with red. She looked at Amy, not with the trusting gaze of a child, but with the skeptical, wounded look of a survivor. You promise?
Yes, I promise.
Lindy stared at her mother. She saw the fear in Amy's eyes. She saw the way Amy's lip trembled before she bit it. Liar, a voice inside Lindy's head whispered. They had promised her dad would be okay too. They had told her he was just going to the doctor. They had told her everything was going to be fine. And then came the black dresses. Then came the crying. Then came the silence at the dinner table that never went away. The ambulance. The panic. The he's going to be okay. It was a script. Lindy knew the script. She knew how it ended. He looked dead. Like Daddy. The words were flat, devoid of emotion, stating a fact. Amy recoiled as if she had been slapped.
No, Lindy. He wasn't dead. He just fainted. He was unconscious. That's different.
Amy felt the air leave her lungs. The name was a physical blow. The ghost that lived in the walls of the farmhouse.
Oh, honey. No, it's not the same. It's not the same at all.
Amy reached for her, trying to pull her into a hug, trying to smother the fear with physical contact. But Lindy was stiff in her arms. She didn't hug back. She was a statue. You were crying. You were screaming.
I was scared. Adults get scared too. But that doesn't mean...
You were fighting with Aunt Lou before he fell. Amy stopped. The guilt that had been gnawing at her stomach suddenly bit down hard. Lindy had heard. Of course she had heard. The shouting match had been loud enough to wake the dead.
We were just having a disagreement. People fight sometimes. It doesn't mean anything bad is going to happen.
But something bad did happen. Amy didn't know how to dismantle that equation without admitting her own fault. She couldn't look Lindy in the eye. She looked down at the quilt, tracing the stitching with her finger.
It was an accident. Lindy. Grandpa just got sick. It had nothing to do with the shouting.
But even as she said it, Amy knew it sounded hollow. She was lying to her daughter to protect herself. She was gaslighting a child because she couldn't face the reality that she had screamed her grandfather into cardiac arrest. Lindy pulled away from the hug. She lay back down, turning her back to Amy again. She pulled the duvet up over her ear, shutting out the voice, shutting out the lies. I'm tired. Amy sat there for a moment, her hand hovering in the air. Rejected. She felt a profound sense of failure. She had come to fix things, and she had only made the cracks visible.
Okay, you rest. I'll be right downstairs.
Amy stood up. She walked to the door, her boots heavy on the floor. She looked back one last time. Lindy was just a small lump under the blankets again, hiding from the monsters that Amy had let into the house. The morning light filtering into the farmhouse kitchen was pale and watery, devoid of any warmth. It washed over the pine table where Lindy sat, slumped over a bowl of oatmeal that had long since gone cold and gummy. She wasn't eating. She was staring at the milk swirling around the edges of the oats, her eyes glazed over, lost in a place Amy couldn't reach. Amy stood at the counter, gripping a mug of coffee she hadn't taken a sip of. The steam had stopped rising 20 minutes ago. The silence in the kitchen was suffocating. Usually, this time of morning was a chaotic symphony of school bags zipping, toast popping, and Jack grumbling about the weather while Lou frantically checked her emails. Now, the silence pressed against Amy's eardrums like deep water. Lindy hadn't spoken a word since she woke up. She had shuffled out of bed, put on her dressing gown, and sat at the table like a zombie. When Amy had suggested getting dressed for school, Lindy had simply shaken her head, a slow, lethargic movement that terrified Amy more than a tantrum would have. Amy walked over to the table and pulled out a chair.
You don't have to go, you know.
Lindy didn't look up. She kept stirring the oatmeal, round and round, a mesmerizing, pointless motion.
I can call the school. Tell them we had a family emergency. You can stay here with me. We can watch movies. Or go see the horses.
At the mention of horses, Lindy's hand stopped. She finally looked up. Her face was pale, dark circles bruising the skin under her eyes. She looked so much like Ty in that moment. The same dark, intense eyes, the same way of holding her worry inside, that Amy felt a physical ache in her chest. Is he all right?
Yes, honey. I told you last night. Grandpa is doing great. The doctor said he's stable. He just needs rest.
Lindy studied Amy's face. She was looking for the lie. She was looking for the twitch of the eye, the waver in the voice that she had seen when her father died. Children who experience loss become detectives of grief. They learn to read the silence between the words. He looked really hurt, Mom.
He was just weak. His heart got a little tired.
Why?
Why? What?
Why did his heart get tired? Lindy leaned forward slightly, her small hands gripping the edge of the table. Her eyes were laser-focused on Amy. Was it because of the shouting? The question hit Amy like a sniper shot. The air left the room. Amy opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She wanted to say no. She wanted to say, "Of course not. Don't be silly." But the memory of the night before, her own voice screaming, Lou's desperate pleading, the sheer volume of the rage that had filled the house choked her. You and Aunt Lou were fighting. I heard you. You were screaming. And then ambulance came. And...
Lindy, no. It's not.
Did you hurt him? Amy felt tears prick her eyes. The accusation from her own daughter was unbearable. It mirrored the accusation she had thrown at Lou, but now, facing the innocent clarity of a child, the blame felt like it was ricocheting back onto her.
No. I would never hurt Grandpa. We were just arguing. Lindy, arguments don't hurt people like that. It was just a coincidence.
Lindy didn't look convinced. She looked scared. She looked at Amy as if her mother was dangerous, as if the anger inside Amy was a physical weapon that could strike again. Before Amy could salvage the moment, the front door opened. A gust of fresh, cold air swept into the kitchen, carrying the scent of expensive cologne and rain. Nathan Price walked in. He didn't knock. He walked in with the proprietary air of a man who owned the place, or at least owned the people inside it. He was dressed in a crisp suit, looking vibrant and untouched by the trauma that had shattered the Fleming household.
Good morning, ladies.
Amy turned, wiping her eyes quickly. She felt a wave of relief wash over her. Nathan. Nathan would know what to say. Nathan always knew how to fix the narrative.
Why the long faces? The sun is trying to come out.
He walked over to the table, ignoring the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. He looked at Lindy, who had shrunk back in her chair, eyeing him with suspicion. Nathan smiled, a perfect, practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, but looked warm enough from a distance.
And how is my favorite little artist doing today?
Lindy didn't answer. She looked at her oatmeal. Amy trailed off, unable to repeat Lindy's question. She couldn't say, "She thinks I killed him," out loud. Nathan didn't need her to finish. He read the room instantly. He crouched down beside Lindy's chair, bringing himself to her eye level. He reached out and placed a large, warm hand on her shoulder.
Lindy, look at me.
Lindy slowly turned her head.
Your mom told me you were scared. That's okay. It was a scary night, but do you know what actually happened?
Lindy shook her head, a tiny movement.
Grandpa Jack caught a bug. You know how sometimes you get the flu and you feel really weak and have to lie down?
Lindy nodded.
Well, when you get to be Grandpa's age, those bugs hit you a little harder. That's all it was. A nasty little virus. He got dizzy, and he fell down. It had nothing to do with anything else.
Lindy looked at him. It was a simple story. A safe story. A virus. Not a fight. Not a heart attack caused by stress. Just a germ. A bug.
Just a bug. And the doctors gave him some strong medicine. And now he's resting. He's going to be just fine. In fact, he's probably awake right now, wondering why you aren't eating your breakfast.
Nathan stood up, and in one smooth motion, he scooped Lindy up into his arms.
Whoa, up we go.
You're getting too big for this.
Lindy stiffened for a second, then relaxed against his shoulder. She was starved for comfort, for a strong figure to tell her that the world wasn't ending. Nathan held her effortlessly, patting her back with a rhythmic, soothing motion.
See, she just needed the facts.
Amy watched them. She saw her daughter resting her head on Nathan's shoulder, accepting the lie because it was less painful than the truth. A knot of unease tightened in Amy's stomach. Lindy was hugging the man who had orchestrated the fight, the man Jack despised. But Amy pushed it down. Nathan had calmed her. Nathan had stopped the questions.
Thank you.
Now, how about you go take a little nap? You didn't sleep much last night, did you?
No.
Go lie down. When you wake up, maybe we'll have news that Grandpa is ready for visitors.
He carried her out of the kitchen and up the stairs, his footsteps heavy and assured. Amy stood alone in the kitchen. The interior of Nathan's Range Rover was a sanctuary of climate-controlled silence, sealed off from the gray misery of the highway. The leather seats were heated, the engine was a barely audible purr, and the smell of the storm outside was replaced by the scent of new car and Nathan's sandalwood cologne. But for Amy, the luxury felt suffocating. It felt like a cage. She sat in the passenger seat, her hands clamped between her knees, twisting her fingers together until the joints turned white. She stared out the window at the blurred landscape of Hudson passing by the fence posts, the bare trees, the puddles reflecting the leaden sky. Every mile closer to the hospital tightened the knot in her stomach. She couldn't get the image out of her head, the back of Jack's head, the way his hand had covered his ear to block out her voice, the way he had said them. It had been a rejection so absolute, so physical, that it had kept her awake all night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had lost him forever.
What if he does it again?
Nathan didn't take his eyes off the road. His hands rested lightly on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, relaxed and confident.
Does what?
Turns away. Nathan, he refused to look at me. He looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was...
Nathan sighed, the sound of patient indulgence. He reached over and placed his hand over hers, his palm warm and heavy. It was a gesture meant to ground her, but it felt more like a restraint.
Amy, we talked about this. You are obsessing over a moment that wasn't real.
It felt real.
Of course it did, because you're emotional. You're exhausted. But look at the facts. The man had just suffered a major cardiac event. He was pumped full of sedatives, painkillers, and beta blockers. His brain chemistry was a mess.
Nathan steered the car smoothly onto the exit ramp toward the hospital. He spoke with the authority of a doctor or a lawyer, or someone who simply knew how the world worked better than she did.
Think about it. He wakes up in a strange room, tubes everywhere, lights buzzing. He's confused, and who does he see? Who does he see? He sees the person who represents the reality of the situation. You. Seeing you reminded him that he fell.
So he blames me?
No, he's ashamed, Amy. He's ashamed, Amy. Men like Jack, they have a lot of pride. He didn't want you to see him like that. Weak, helpless. Turning away wasn't about hating you. It was about hiding himself.
Amy looked at Nathan. His profile was calm. his jawline strong. He made it sound so logical, so simple. It wasn't that she was a villain. It was that Jack was proud. It was a rewrite of the story that absolved her of the guilt that was eating her alive. She wanted to believe it so badly that she felt herself leaning toward him physically and emotionally.
You really think so?
I know so. And today? Today the drugs will have worn off. He'll be thinking clearly. And he's going to realize that while Lou ran for the hills, you stayed, you came back. You're the one taking care of the ranch and Lindy while he's laid up.
Nathan pulled the car into a parking spot near the main entrance. He shifted into park and killed the engine. The silence rushed back in, but this time it felt less heavy. Nathan turned in his seat to face her. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek.
Stop punishing yourself for Lou's mistakes. You are the good daughter. You are the rock. Jack knows that. Deep down, he knows that.
Amy let out a breath. She felt like she had been holding since yesterday afternoon. The narrative took hold. She wasn't the stress. She was the rock. She wasn't the cause. She was the cure. She opened the door. The cold, wet air hit her face, bracing and sharp, and felt like a clean slate. Yesterday was a drug-induced nightmare. Today was the reality. Today, Grandpa would smile at her. Today, everything would go back to normal.
I'll see you inside.
I'm right behind you. Go see him.
Amy stepped out into the rain, slamming the door shut. She walked toward the automatic doors of the hospital entrance, her step lighter, her resolve hardened by the soothing, poisonous logic of Nathan Price. Nathan watched her go through the rain-streaked windshield. His smile faded the moment she turned her back. He picked up his phone, checking the time. He didn't have a call to make. He just wanted her to go in alone. If Jack rejected her again, Nathan needed to be the safety net she fell into, not the witness to the crash. The walk to the intensive care unit felt different today. Yesterday, the hallway had been a tunnel of guilt, lengthening with every step, the walls closing in like a prison. Today, fortified by Nathan's words, Amy felt like she was marching toward a finish line. Jack would be sitting up, clear-eyed and lucid, free from the fog of the sedatives. He would see her, really see her. And the confusion of the previous night would evaporate. He would ask about Lindy. He would ask about the ranch. And then, the inevitable subject of Lou would come up, and they would bond over the shared tragedy of Lou's abandonment. It was a neat, tidy narrative, constructed brick by Nathan Price, and Amy clung to it like a shield. She reached the waiting area outside the ICU. Amy smoothed her jacket. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the recycled air. She reached for the handle of the double doors leading into the unit. The doors to the unit swung open before she could touch them. But it wasn't a nurse. It was Lisa. Lisa stepped out, nearly colliding with Amy. She looked different today. The shock that had rendered her ghostly and transparent the night before had hardened into something brittle and sharp. Her eyes were red-rimmed, surrounded by dark shadows of exhaustion, but the gaze itself was focused. Amy stopped, startled. She moved a step around Lisa, eager to get to the room, to the validation she was promised. Lisa didn't move. She stepped sideways, blocking Amy's path with a deliberate physical obstruction. No. The word was quiet, but it had the density of lead. Amy blinked, confused.
What do you mean, no? The doctor said the drugs would have worn off by now. He said Grandpa would be awake.
He is awake.
Great. Then I'm going in. I need to explain to him that I'm here, that I'm handling things since Lou left.
At the mention of Lou's name, Lisa's face twitched. It was a micro-expression of pain, quickly covered by a mask of cold fury. You aren't going in there, Amy. Not today. Maybe not for a long time.
Lisa, stop it. I know you're upset, but you can't keep me from him. I'm his granddaughter.
Lisa's hand shot out, slamming against the door frame, barring the way. The violence of the gesture froze Amy in her tracks. Don't you dare, Amy.
What are you doing, Lisa? It's all Lou's fault. She caused all of this stress with her investigations and her paranoia.
The narrative spilled out of Amy, the script Nathan had written for her. It felt good to say it. It felt righteous. It's Lou's fault. It's Lou's fault. Amy pointed a finger at the closed doors.
The doctor said it was stress. Chronic, sustained stress. That's Lou. That's what she does. She pushes and pushes until things break. I'm just trying to pick up the pieces.
Lisa stared at Amy. She looked at her as if she was seeing a stranger wearing Amy Fleming's face. She let out a short, incredulous breath that was devoid of humor. Jack has been stressed, but hearts don't just stop from worry. They stop from shock. They stop from a sudden massive surge of adrenaline that the system can't handle. Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper, but it was a whisper that screamed. He called it acute stress, immediate, traumatic. The kind of stress that happens when someone you love screams in your face that they are leaving you. Amy recoiled. The hallway seemed to tilt.
No.
Lou wasn't in the house, Amy. Lou was in the car. Lou was miles away. Who was in the hallway? Who was shouting? Amy opened her mouth to defend herself, to summon Nathan's logic, but the words died in her throat. It was a fight. People fight. But the logic didn't hold up against the physics of what Lisa was saying. You want to blame Lou because it's easy, because Nathan hands you that excuse on a silver platter so he can isolate you. But I was there last night, Amy. I held Jack's hand while he turned blue. I watched his eyes roll back in his head. Lisa's voice cracked, the tears finally spilling over, hot and angry. And the last thing he heard wasn't Lou's voice. It was yours. Amy shook her head, tears springing to her own eyes.
I didn't mean it.
It doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what you did. You triggered the event. You. Lisa poked Amy in the chest. It wasn't hard, but it felt like a brand. You're so fixated on painting Lou as the villain that you can't see the blood on your own hands. Lou didn't put him in that bed. Lou would never hurt him like that. Amy tried to look away, but she couldn't. Lisa's truth was a spotlight, burning away the shadows where Nathan's lies lived. You are the stress, Amy. You are the reason. He almost died. And until you can look in the mirror and admit that you don't deserve to see him. Lisa stepped back. She adjusted her coat, pulling the armor of her dignity back around her. She looked at the ICU doors, then back at Amy. Go home. Go back to your boyfriend. But don't you dare come in here and pretend you're the victim. Lisa turned on her heel. She swiped her badge on the sensor. She walked into the ICU and the door swung shut behind her. The latch clicked, sealing Amy out. Amy stood alone in the hallway. The silence rushed back in. But it wasn't the expectant silence of before. It was a crushing, suffocating silence. You are the stress,